On the 21st of June, the NHS quietly announced something massive. Under a new 10-year plan, every baby born in the UK could have their DNA collected and sequenced as part of a groundbreaking national health initiative. According to Health Secretary Wes Streeting, the goal is to screen for hundreds of diseases and allow families to leapfrog deadly conditions before they take hold. Sounds promising, right? Well, not entirely. Right out of the gate, I have questions. Big ones. DNA at birth. Scientific breakthrough or ethical overreach? Collecting a baby's full genome sounds futuristic, almost like something from a sci-fi novel. In theory, it's incredible. A single test at birth could detect early signs of rare genetic conditions, helping doctors intervene before symptoms even begin. Parents could be given peace of mind, or at least an early warning. But let's slow down for a second, because underneath the promise of life-saving science lies a much deeper, more uncomfortable question. Should a government, any government, be collecting a child's most private data before that child even knows their name? Consent versus control. Can parents really say yes for life? Yes, this plan comes with parental consent. But consent isn't always as straightforward as it sounds, especially when you're making lifelong decisions on someone else's behalf. A newborn can't say no. They can't choose how their DNA is stored, shared, or secured. That decision is being made for them, and potentially for life. What happens if that child grows up and no longer agrees? Can they ever truly reclaim that data? Can they delete their own genetic record? We don't have clear answers yet, and that alone is unsettling. A warning from the US. If you think this couldn't be misused, just look at what happened in the United States. For decades, hospitals in the US collected blood from newborns for medical screening, but in many states, the leftover blood, which contains DNA, was stored for years, and in some cases, decades. Parents were rarely informed. In Texas, over 5 million baby blood samples were stored and shared with private research labs, without parental knowledge. After a lawsuit, the state was forced to destroy the samples. In New Jersey, DNA samples were handed to law enforcement without consent, sparking even more outrage. And in Michigan, a judge ruled that the state had violated constitutional rights by storing newborn DNA without explicit permission. So yes, it's already happened elsewhere. And if we're not careful, it could happen here in England too. What happens if the DNA says something's wrong? Now here's where things get even more complicated. What if your child's DNA shows a marker for a disease that may or may not ever develop? Will they be prescribed medication before they ever show symptoms? Will they grow up thinking they're broken, vulnerable, or defective? Will this change how they're treated at school, at work, in relationships? We're entering a world where identity could be shaped and limited by a strand of code. That's not just a scientific dilemma. That's a deeply human one. Data breaches, hacking, and the risk of genetic surveillance. Let's talk about data safety, because this is where the whole idea starts to unravel. We've seen banks hacked, we've seen hospitals hit with ransomware, even the NHS itself has been compromised. And recently, in June 2024, a Russian-linked cybercriminal group called Keelan hacked into Synovus, a pathology lab that works with London NHS hospitals. They stole over 380 gigabytes of sensitive data, including details from nearly 300 million NHS patient interactions, blood test results for HIV, cancer, and other serious conditions. The attack shut down hospital labs, forced thousands of canceled surgeries, and exposed how fragile our systems really are. And in the US, it's no better. In early 2025, a company called Episource suffered a cyber attack that exposed the health records of 5.4 million patients. We're talking about names, test results, diagnoses, prescriptions, even full medical images. And perhaps most worrying, in 2023, hackers broke into 23andMe, one of the world's biggest DNA testing companies. They accessed data from nearly 7 million users, including raw genetic information and health reports, some of which ended up for sale on the dark web. So when officials say your baby's DNA will be secure, the question isn't if it could be hacked, it's when. And what happens after it's stolen? Because unlike a password, you can't change your DNA. Insurance and future discrimination, a quiet risk. Here's what people aren't talking about enough. A child born today could one day be denied life insurance, travel cover, or even a mortgage because their DNA shows a higher risk of cancer, heart disease, or mental illness. And the worst part? That data was collected before they could speak. In a future run by algorithms, your DNA could become your identity and your limitation. Science isn't the enemy, but blind trust might be. Let me be clear, this isn't an attack on science. Genome sequencing is a powerful tool. It can and has saved lives. But there's a difference between offering people the chance to participate in this science and automating it from birth. There's a difference between helping a child and tagging them like a product the moment they enter the world. What people are saying, and this unease? It's not just mine. One mother on Reddit wrote, "I'll never agree to this. What if it gets hacked?" Another user said, "Imagine your baby's DNA ending up in a government database, sold to the highest bidder. That's not healthcare. That's surveillance." The worry is real, and the fear isn't about technology, it's about trust. Final thoughts and CTA. The idea of preventing disease before it starts is powerful, but so is the idea of freedom, privacy, and dignity. We can't just ask what this will do for public health. We also have to ask, what will it do to public trust, to a child's sense of autonomy, to our definition of what it means to be healthy or human? Because in the rush to innovate, we can't afford to lose our humanity. If this video made you think, or made you uncomfortable in all the right ways, please subscribe to Health, Body, and Mind, because understanding the future of healthcare means asking the hard questions now.